Hello everyone, back to you in today's first video. We're doing the second summer 2018 seasonal roundup for today's first video. So we're going to get 13 long-range models together and see what they're all showing for the summer. Well, the first model doesn't quite cover the summer period, but all of the rest of the models that we're looking at will cover the full summer period. So we're going to get them all together and see what the consensus is for the summer of 2018. Of course, this is ahead of the GWV Summer 2018 forecast being released in 1 month's time. We'll be releasing the summer forecast on the 27th of April. So it's going to be released in just a month. Again, very close to it now, and we've got a few more analogues updates to go. Of course, there'll be another one of those tomorrow, and there'll be one more seasonal roundup next month before we get everything together, put it all together, and release our summer 2018 forecast. So it is getting ever closer now, and we are on the countdown to having to get the summer forecast together. But we've got these 13 long-range models to get through before we have to start thinking about that. So I'm going to talk you through all of the models in a moment from many of the leading world weather centres, and we'll see what they're showing very shortly. Just to say that later on today, we'll be releasing weekend forecast. It's going to be quite an interesting forecast, I think, this week. There's a lot of weather going on, so come back to that this afternoon. I'll have a weekend forecast for you. Normally it's just after lunch on a Saturday afternoon. This will be quite a long video, so if you can't watch it all in one go, don't worry, it will be kept on website indefinitely, because later on today, sometime late this afternoon or this evening, I'll be placing this on the summer updates and forecast page. There'll be an extensive written report that goes with it as well, so you can come back and watch the video whenever you want, and also read that written report, just summing up everything that we discuss in the video in terms of these models. So get yourself a cup of tea and a couple of biscuits, because it's going to be here for a little while. And without further ado, we better get on with it. And I'm going to start off with the JMA. So this model is doesn't cover the full summer period. This model is taking us from next month, from May through to July. Now, we had a look at this in a video in its own terms a few days ago. So I won't go into the month-by-month breakdowns. We're just going to look at the 3-monthly anomaly covering the May to July period. Starting off with the 500 millibar height anomaly, which has above average heights generally centred to our south, and then below average heights, or near normal heights, I suppose you'd say, up to the north. The temperature anomaly for this summer is coming out average, or I should say early summer, considering that it's May to July, is coming out average to a little bit above average, with the temperature anomaly through the early to midsummer period. And then the rainfall anomaly looks like this, and it's a bit above average with the precipitation to the north, and near normal to a little bit drier than average down in the south. So no big deviations from May to July with temperature or precipitation. Our mean wind flow for this period from May through to July, indicated by these black arrows here. They're always a little bit hard to make out, but the mean wind direction is westerly, telling us it's going to be quite a westerly sort of end to spring and early to midsummer. So quite a lot of westerly winds, and therefore you wouldn't expect a big deviation in temperature, certainly not a particularly warm direction westerly in the summer, and most unsettled conditions would be up in the north. Next month, the JMA will cover the full summer period, going from June through to August. So we will know more with the JMA next month. Right, so our next model that we're going to use is the International Research Institute. This is a new model. I haven't used this before, I don't think, in the model roundups. So this one is from the International Research Institute for Climate and Society. It's from the Columbia University, and it's probability, temperature probability this time. So I'll just include this as as a one-off. You have to let me know what you think. So this is looking at temperature probabilities for the summer. And for Europe. So every model that you see from now on, by the way, will be covering the full summer period. So we won't be messing around with being a month short with any of the other models for this update. So this is the temperature probability forecast from the Institute, from the IRI. And we can see that it's going for average temperature probabilities, essentially, for much of northern Europe. The probability is just for near normal temperatures, really. No great probability either way. Southern Europe is coming out with a probability of a warm summer, warmer than average temperatures through the course of this summer. But for Northern Europe, and the British Isles and Ireland is included this, the probability is for just average temperatures, so no great deviation. In terms of precipitation for this summer, so it's going for a probability of below normal precipitation for northern parts of the UK. So Scotland, Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland coming out with a 40% below normal probability. For England and Wales, it looks as though the probability is close to average, essentially. But I think what we can say is that for many western parts of Europe, it appears that we have got, if anything, the probability is favouring a drier summer, and it looks as though these northeastern, eastern parts of Europe maybe have a slight probability for a wetter summer. But I think that's a little bit speculative. So essentially, it looks like the probabilities from the IRI are going for sort of average temperatures, and maybe a little bit on the drier than average side. We'll go through to the Brazilian model next. So I've got to quickly flip these over. So if we go through to June, July and August too, that's how things are looking there. So this is the precipitation anomaly. So that's gone a little bit wrong. I'm going to have to pause the video. These charts are not quite right, so I'm going to pause the video and I'll be back in around 2 seconds time. So just hold on and we'll start up again any second. Okay, and so we're back. I've got the charts set up correctly now, hopefully. I've had a bit of a nightmare with my computer tonight, so that's the reason the charts are a little bit messed up. And we may find as we go along, there's a lot of page refreshing going on, which is rather annoying. We'll add a little bit of time, extra time to the video. You might be seeing a few seconds of white screen as we click through the tab. So sorry about that. I'm not sure what problem is there. So we're at the Brazilian model now, so we're beginning to have a look at models for the Americas. I just better check to make sure we are recording. Yes, we are. So this is 500 millibar height anomaly for the summer of 2018 from the Brazilian model. This one always does things a bit different. So blue is extrapolating to a high pressure, and yellow, orange and red extrapolate to low pressure. On any other height anomaly, that's the other way round. So the Brazilian model wants to have an area of above average height, which is high pressure, down to our southwest. The flow and the jet stream is doing something rather like that. So expect a lot of settled weather in with that, but the mean flow is probably from the west-northwesterly direction, so not overly warm. Temperature anomalies look like this, coming out average to possibly hinting at being a little bit below average for Northern Europe up here, but for us actually in the UK and for Ireland just coming out with average temperature anomalies, which for this model is actually quite cool. And then precipitation anomalies, overall close to average, hinting at being a bit drier than average down to our southwest. That's where the ridge of high pressure is sitting, of course. So again, just rather average all round. Nothing particularly hot being signalled, but equally nothing particularly cold or unsettled being signalled either. Just rather cool and a westerly Atlantic-driven flow. The CAN6 model comes next. This is from a website, tropicaltidbits.com. You find a link to Tropical Tidbits on the links page. This is the mean sea level pressure anomaly. And again, very sort of weak signals. We've got the mean sort of position of a ridge down here to our southwest, possibly hinting at a bit of low pressure up to the north, and mainly flat westerly flow coming through from off the Atlantic as well. The temperature anomaly from CAN6 is coming out, we're just over in the right hand corner of the chart as you're looking at it, by the way, coming out just close to average. Again, no big deviation either way, just average sort of temperatures being signalled there. And then the precipitation anomaly, again, no real signal either way, just again coming out with average precipitation. So far a very unexciting update with all models looked at so far generally just going for rather sort of average type temperature and precipitation anomalies. Now this is the experimental NASA model. They have changed the model and also they've changed the charts that we can see, so we can't actually now see a 500 millibar or mean sea level pressure anomaly, so we've got no idea what is producing the temperature and precipitation anomalies that we can see. But this is the temperature anomaly for this summer from the NASA model. Again, we're in the right-hand corner of the chart as you look at it, as we normally are on most of these long-range models, actually. And the model, the NASA model, is going for a little bit cooler than average, actually, going for a rather cool summer for the UK and also over here across much of Europe. So a rather cool summer temperature anomaly being forecast. Precipitation wise, I'm going to get this correct. Precipitation is generally for eastern and northern parts of the country up here, where we've got these blue colours coming out a little bit below average with the rainfall. But for much of the UK, actually, it is rather slightly above average with precipitation, as it is across much of Central Europe as well. So a rather cool and unsettled summer appears to be being forecast by the experimental NASA model. Patel Peng next. So Patel is using an analogues-based system for his forecast. So Patel looks at the sea surface temperature anomalies across the world in any given month, and in this case through March 2018, and then produces an analogues-based forecast for what those sea surface temperature anomalies could mean as you stretch out through the season. So he looks at the sea surface temperature anomalies, compares back to past years with a similar sea surface temperature anomaly, and then from that looks at the weather patterns that were derived from those sea surface temperature anomalies and creates an analogues forecast going forward. So this is the 200 millibar height anomaly for the summer of 2018 from Patel Peng. He's going for below average heights to the west and northwest of the UK. Above average heights are down to the south, and would be bringing the jet stream through rather like that. So it does look as though it's quite a westerly and quite a changeable summer being forecast by Patel Peng. The temperature anomaly, again, this is a recurring theme with many of these models that we've seen so far. Temperature anomalies just coming out close to average, no great deviation either way. He is going for a rather warm summer across parts of Central and Southern Europe, incidentally, but for us, again, no great deviation with the temperature anomaly. Precipitation is a little bit more dramatic, though, because we are looking at quite a wet summer, if this is right, with precipitation anomalies generally quite significantly above average. So average sort of temperature and then a wetter signal for the summer in what will be a westerly Atlantic driven summer pattern is the forecast this month from Patel Peng. CFS V2 next, and both Patel and the CFS V2 come within the umbrella of NOAA, the National Weather Agency of the United States. So we find that we've got for our 700 millibar height anomaly for the summer of 2018 from CFS V2, we've got above average heights to our north. Bit of a blocking signal. And that's not normally a very good sign in the summer. The model doesn't actually show an area of below average heights underneath it, but you would probably expect with that sort of blocking signal that we would tend to get an area of below average heights sitting underneath it. If we did, that would be a pretty poor signal for the summer. It would indicate rather cool and unsettled conditions. Temperature anomalies are coming out like that, so again, no great signal either way. The far north of Scotland coming out a little bit warmer than average, parts of Norway coming out warmer than average, but otherwise, and maybe southeast Europe too, coming out a bit warmer than average down there, but otherwise temperature anomalies are just close to average, maybe hinting at being a bit cooler than average, and that's particularly for down across Spain and Portugal. So, quite a cold temperature anomaly down there. Of course, bear in mind that is an anomaly to average. So, even if, let's see what the scale is. So, that's kind of like 1 to 2 degrees below average being forecast for central Spain this summer. That's still going to be very hot, of course, most of the time down across Spain. So you've got to remember these are anomalies to average, but generally not much in the way of a temperature signal, and that's been a recurring theme through this update. Generally, average temperature anomalies have been signaled by most of the models we've looked at so far. CFS V2 is included in that. Precipitation anomalies for the summer, if anything, we're erring a little bit on the wetter side here. So although it didn't really show the trough within the 700 millibar flow, it does have a bit of a blocking signal, and putting that together with what the precipitation is doing, where we see a wet and average summer being forecast, much of England and Wales, wet and average for France, down into northern parts of Spain as well. You would tend to think that there's some sort of trough of low pressure going on underneath that blocking signal. I can tell you that on a month-by-month basis, so the CFS does start off relatively settled in June, but by August, it does place a very deep trough over the UK and the west of Europe. So it deteriorates the pattern, if you like, through the course of the summer. Right, this is our interpretation of the POAMA model, P-O-A-M-A. This is a long-range model from the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia. This is restricted access, this model, so I can't show you the charts directly, but we have created an interpretation of the charts that we have seen from the Bureau of Meteorology long-range POAMA model. So this is the mean sea level pressure anomaly, first of all, from the POAMA model. And again, this is for the summer, for June, July and August. It's placing an area of below average pressure to the north-northeast of the British Isles. And there's not much ridging either close to us. We have a ridge in the central part of the Atlantic, but otherwise it just looks like it's a rather unsettled and potentially very cool summer as well, because around this trough we will be bringing the air down from a northerly or northwesterly direction, so you would expect temperatures to be rather depressed. We are also on the cold side of the jet stream with that pattern as well. So this is the temperature anomaly for the summer of 2018 from the POAMA model. And it is going for a really cool summer, actually. This is the biggest deviation that we've seen so far to average. Is going for a substantially colder than average or cooler than average summer for the UK, for Ireland, for France. In fact, for much of northern and northwestern Europe, is going for a cooler than average summer. But we're not done there, because that's the precipitation anomaly, and unfortunately it is coming out significantly wetter than average, particularly focused on England and Wales. Scotland and Northern Ireland is closer to average. And I think we can see with this that we've got a southerly tracking jet stream going on. The jet stream is going to be going through in that kind of position, with the centre of the trough of low pressure somewhere around there. the jet stream pushed southwards. There's probably, it doesn't really show, there's probably a blocking signal going on up here as well, which is forcing the jet stream southwards. So the Palama model is the first model that indicates a very, very bad summer. I mean, most of the charts we've looked at so far are not particularly inspiring. Some are unsettled, but this model is going for a very, very poor summer indeed. Right, we'll move on to the Copernicus website and the ECMWF. So we did a video last week, I think it was. I'm losing track with all of the updates that we're doing at the moment, but I think it was last week that we did the video when we looked at the ECMWF and Meteo-France season models at the Copernicus website, so I won't dwell on this too long. This is the mean sea level pressure anomaly for the summer of 2018 from the ECMWF, and not much to go on really. It looks unsettled to the north, otherwise there's not much happening in terms of mean sea level pressure anomalies. Temperature anomalies, again, as with many of these models we've looked at so far, coming out just close to average, with the temperature anomaly not particularly exciting either way. Precipitation anomalies with the ECMWF, again close to average, no great deviation either way, what would be a very sort of typical type summer pattern. This is the mean sea level pressure anomaly from the Meteo-France long range model for the summer. So below average pressure to the north, stronger than is the case for the ECMWF model, and again bringing those westerlies through from off the Atlantic. Temperature anomalies are signalled to be colder than average or cooler than average for this summer, so below average temperature anomalies. That's a little bit of a theme, interestingly, for this second update. Quite unusual for these season models to be this cool, but several of them now are going for rather cool conditions in the summer. And this is how the precipitation anomaly is stacking up. If anything, it's average to possibly hinting at being a little bit on the drier than average side. So a rather cool and dry summer being predicted by Meteo-France. JAMSTEC comes up next. So this is the temperature anomaly from JAMSTEC, and this has really flipped since last month's first season model roundup for the summer of 2018. Last month, JAMSTEC was going for a hotter than average summer, quite substantially so, really warm signal for the summer. Now it has flipped to a cooler than average temperature anomaly for this summer. So this is a recurring theme now with some of these models. Cooler than average is on the cards potentially if some of these models are right. Precipitation wise, so it's drier than average up to the north, so that's indicating high pressure to be up there. Otherwise for us, the UK and Ireland, just again close to average with the precipitation, but if you assume that we've got high pressure up here, we're probably forcing the jet stream south, and so you would probably expect, if anything, precipitation to be above average. Beijing Climate Centre comes up next. This is the 500 millibar height anomaly from the Beijing Climate Centre for the summer of 2018, and it shows that we've got below average height centred almost over the top of the UK and going over to northwestern parts of Europe too. We've got a ridge through the middle of the Atlantic. This would send the jet stream on a northwest to southeast trajectory, and so we will come away with an unsettled and, you will think, cool summer. Temperature anomalies, look at this. Again, we're coming out cooler than average. So with the earlier models in this update, the temperature anomaly signal was for average temperatures. But as we've gone along, as we've gone to some of the, perhaps what you would put at the better end of the range of long-range models, now we've got a trend towards a cooler than average summer, which is very unusual. Most of these models are seemingly programmed to go warmer than average, so it is very unusual to see as many models as this going for a cooler than average summer. The Beijing Climate Centre is going for a colder or cooler than average summer. Precipitation wise, So it's interesting because there's a mix across the UK of either a little bit above or a little bit below average with precipitation. But look how unsettled most of Europe is being signalled to be. So most of Northern Europe is coming out with above average precipitation, coming out wetter than average. Let's just check the scale. That's correct. So most of Northern Europe is coming out with a substantially wetter than average summer. And I think those wetter than average conditions will mainly apply to the UK as well. Whilst we do see a bit of a mix of slightly wetter or slightly drier than average conditions, I think we will be encompassed generally within this wetter than average stuff that's going on across much of Northern Europe. Notice to our northwest up here it's significantly drier than average. Again, that's where the blocking signal is up to the north of the British Isles. And then finally, we've reached the end and we come to the UK Met Office GWV model. And this again means sea level pressure anomalies for the summer of 2018. So it's going for an unsettled summer with below average pressure over and to the north and northwest of the country. Precipitation, temperature anomalies, I should say, coming out close to or maybe hinting at being a little bit above average with the temperature anomaly. Haven't seen many models going for above average temperatures in this update, but there is one that's doing that. Precipitation anomalies finally coming out generally above average in what is a rather unsettled, changeable and wet, but also relatively warm summer. Whether we would actually come out with a warmer than average temperature anomaly in what looks like it's a very unsettled summer pattern, I'm a little bit dubious about that. So, pick the bones out of that, and what we can say is that, well, there's no real sign of a particularly warm or hot summer. That's the first thing to get out of the way. We're at update number 2, and most of these models are either favouring average or cooler to colder than average temperature anomalies this summer. Many of these models are also looking unsettled with their overall patterns in the way they're getting to that cooler than average temperature anomaly. Most of the models look like they're set up for a westerly, zonal, and potentially, in the case of one or two models, really very unsettled summer pattern. And therefore, many of these models are either average or above average with precipitation. So it's a pretty grim second update, actually, for the summer. There's no model there that we can cling to that's going for a particularly hot summer. Most of them are average to cool. There's one UK Met which is above average, but that's really been the only one that we've seen so far. Otherwise, the signal is average or colder than average, and precipitation-wise is generally average or above average. And most of the models look like they are unsettled for the summer as well. So it's not great, but it is only update 2. We've got one more season model roundup to do in a month's time at the end of May. And then, of course, we'll put those models with the analogues, and we'll bring it all together, hopefully, and release the GWV.com Summer 2018 forecast on the 27th of May. Right, so that finishes that. This video will be placed on this summer updates and forecast page later on today, probably around this afternoon or this evening. It'll have a written report that goes with it as well, so you can come back and watch the video when you want to, or read that written report. And later on this afternoon, we're going to have the weekend forecast, which is going to be quite an interesting one, with a lot of contrast to come in the week ahead. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.